Today, we'll start with that FDA panel meeting to consider booster shots for the millions of Americans who got the Moderna vaccine.
Those experts will be busy the next few days. After today's meeting, the panel will come back tomorrow to consider boosters for the Johnson & Johnson shot, as well as the possibility of mixing and matching different vaccines. So far, nearly 9 million Americans have received a booster dose. If Moderna and J&J boosters are approved, millions more Americans who are 6 months out from their last shot will be eligible. We have a team ready to break down everything you need to know about the booster shots. Let's begin with NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. She's in Chicago, outside of CVS, that's already handing out Pfizer boosters. So, Megan, quite a few steps in order to get a booster shot authorized. Remind us, what's that process like? What can we expect today?
Joe, good morning to you. Yes, this is a very long and extensive and methodical process. I want to walk you through each of these steps. So first, of course, the company, in this case, Moderna. Tomorrow, of course, we'll be focusing on J&J. They're going to file for the FDA authorization. Then the FDA is going to hold a series of meetings, and they're going to vote on those recommendations. They're going to be assessing and analyzing all of the data. Then the FDA, of course, will issue their decision. Then it goes to the CDC. The CDC then holds meetings, and then they vote on the vaccine. The last and final step here is when the CDC director signs off on the recommendation. So certainly a lengthy process. We expect it to last throughout the day today, and then tomorrow for Johnson & Johnson throughout the day as well, before we understand whether or not these boosters will be approved.
Here's one of the key questions before the FDA, which is, what do we know about the Moderna booster so far and how well it protects people from COVID?
So Moderna is saying that a booster shot is needed because their vaccine wanes over time. And so what they're doing here is they're recommending half a dose of their vaccine. They say that that will increase the immune response against COVID-19. And it's also going to free up supply. So as opposed to that full dose that people receive the first and the second shot, again, this is half a dose. So there'll be more supply, and they'll be able to provide more boosters to people more efficiently, Joe.
And Megan, how are federal health officials preparing for the rollout if Moderna and Johnson & Johnson boosters are both authorized at the same time? Is everything in place to handle that right off the bat?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Federal health authorities, as well as the White House, says they're ready. And as soon as the boosters are approved, if in fact they are approved, they say they're ready to hit the ground running. I want you to listen to what the White House had to say.
As we await the FDA and the CDC's decisions on potential Moderna and J&J boosters in the coming days, we're working with our partners to prepare. We have the vaccine supply, and we will be ready to hit the ground running as soon as any additional boosters are authorized.
And so this means in the coming weeks, if these boosters are approved, additional millions of Americans could be eligible for this booster shot. Joe?
All right, big day at the FDA. Megan, thanks for kicking off our coverage.
Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor, Dr. Ebony Hilton. Dr. Hilton, good to see you. So FDA scientists said earlier this week that the initial 2 doses of Moderna are still enough protection. So this is a little confusing. Walk us through what you think is going to happen in this meeting today. Would the FDA move forward with a Moderna booster shot?
Yeah, it's one of those things. We saw the same thing with the Pfizer. We know that the vaccines have done a fantastic job at protecting against the severity of COVID-19. So keeping people out of the hospital, keeping them out of the ventilator, keeping them out of the ICU, and unfortunately, or fortunately, keeping them from dying. But we know that there's more potential that we can help to prevent people from being infected. And I think that's what the CDC, when you see the difference in what the FDA is doing and what the CDC is doing, they're both looking at the same set of data. But what's the goal of this? And what we know is that at this point, the more people that we can prevent from getting infected, we can hopefully stop having what we have now, where 2,000 people are still dying a day. That's one person every 47 seconds. And we have to do something to slow the spread of this disease.
Yeah, doctor, I've got another booster shot question for you. This one's an interesting one. A study from the National Institutes of Health found that mixing and matching COVID boosters are safe and effective. And it actually specifically found that people who received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine produced stronger antibody levels after they got a Moderna or Pfizer booster. So how does mixing and matching work? Do you think that that's something the FDA and the CDC would back?
Right. I think it's going to be one of the things they consider, especially in the long run. What we know is that at this point, there have been many different people that's getting at their institutions different vaccines, and they want to know what is actually available for me. I know there were persons who received the Johnson & Johnson and the Moderna vaccine that when the Pfizer said they can get their booster shot, they said, can I get that booster shot because it's available? We're going to look at this study. This study that the NIH presented literally was on safety, and that's a great thing that it shows that it is safe to mix and match. Now, the question is going to be on efficacy. And so they're going to follow those persons out for the better part of a year to see, do you have the same protection? Do you have that lasting immunity that we're hoping to gain from COVID-19? Because we know this is not a problem that's going to go away tomorrow. So I'm hopeful for it.
Absolutely. And Dr. Hilton, of course, we're focusing a lot on booster shots. I just asked you a bunch of questions about them, but there are still millions of Americans who haven't received even their first dose. So if they get vaccinated now, what kind of protection do they have? How long could it last?
Right. What we know is that at least for the 2-dose series, they still have a great protection against severe COVID-19. And what we're going to see in the next couple of months is it's not only just the persons, the adults who've been waiting. We're going to start to see kids now being vaccinated. And hopefully we can get closer and closer to that herd immunity that we've been trying to target. But that requires 70, 80% of all Americans to be vaccinated. And then we have to think globally. And at this point, there's still only 2.4% of those poorest countries that's even received the first dose of their COVID vaccine. So we have a ways to go.
Yeah, we certainly do. Dr. Ebony Hilton, thank you so much.
President Biden is taking steps to tackle the supply chain crisis. Those shortages are wreaking havoc on big and small businesses alike, leaving many store shelves empty ahead of the busy holiday season. Yesterday, the president announced that the Port of L.A. would now operate around the clock. He hopes that'll help alleviate the bottleneck there amid scenes of cargo ships stranded off the coast.
By staying open 7 days a week through the night and on the weekends, the Port of Los Angeles will open over 60 extra hours a week will be open. In total, that will almost double the number of hours that the port is open for business from earlier this year. That means an increase in the hours for workers to be moving cargo off ships onto trucks and rail cars to get to their destination.
NBCNews.com senior White House reporter Shannon Pettypiece joins us, along with our senior business reporter Ben Popkin. Good morning to both of you. So, Shannon, President Biden brought together business leaders at the White House to talk about these supply chain issues. How's he planning to tackle them? What does he want from the private sector?
Well, he's hoping this is going to be a big first step because the Port of Los Angeles, along with the Port of Long Beach, which recently also extended hours, they account for about 40% of cargo that comes into the U.S. And the president said that having these late hours also makes it more efficient because if anybody's been to L.A., you know there is a lot less traffic late at night for helping those trucks get in and out of the port. Here's a little bit more what the president had to say.
Strengthening our supply chain will continue to be my team's focus. If federal support is needed, I will direct all appropriate action. And if the private sector doesn't step up, we're going to call them out and ask them to act. Because our goal is not only to get through this immediate bottleneck, but to address the long-standing weaknesses in our transportation supply chain that this pandemic has exposed.
So the president there, as you mentioned, calling out the private sector, he said that it is a supply chain. There are many links. This is just one of them. Other companies need to step up too. You need the trucks to drive those goods to the stores and the trains to transport the products. You also need people, frankly, at the physical retail store there at some of those late hours to unload the trucks when that cargo comes in. So certainly signaling more is to be done. And the White House hopes it can be the one to kind of bring these links of the supply chain together, which they say yesterday was the first example of how they're going to do that.
All right, that's the political side of things. Ben, what do businesses think of these plans? Do they go far enough to address the needs of both big and small companies?
Well, small businesses have had to pay double, even triple freight costs due to these port delays, had to add on 2 months or more for delivery of basic items. And much of this gets passed on to the consumer, companies jacking up prices, cutting corners on service. So small businesses cheer anything that might unclog these ports, but the ports are just one part of the puzzle. Small businesses say that large companies, they can pay to get cargo space, hire private cargo ships, fast track the unloading of their containers. Small companies, they might only have one container. They may not have the clout or dozens of containers to qualify qualify for kind of white glove service at the ports. But that one container that they have could represent 2 months of payroll. And that's where small businesses are saying that this move to run the ports 24/7 is a good first step, but the White House still needs to step up.
So, Shannon, if you're the president, undelivered toys at Christmas and anything else that disrupts the holidays, those are some of the last things he wants right now. So how damaging could this be for him politically? Could we see the government step in and take on a bigger role if things don't get better?
Well, I mean, not only could it spoil Christmas, but these effects could ripple through the economy for months well into 2022. And that's something that White House officials and administration officials have begun to acknowledge, that inflationary pressures, product shortages, labor shortages, they're not going to resolve next month. This is going to be something ongoing into next year. And politically, that, poses a big risk for Democrats, because next year we happen to have an election, a midterm election, with every member of the House of Representatives up for re-election. So this is an area you can see the White House focused on now. It has been going on for many months, but it has clearly got the White House's increased attention now. And you heard the president there saying he will step in and take more federal action if need be.
Shannon mentioned inflation. Ben, we're seeing this supply chain crisis translate to higher prices across the board. Inflation hitting a 13-year high in September. Should Americans be prepared for prices to stay higher for a longer period of time?
Well, just like Shannon was saying, experts are saying grab your wallets, because inflation is not going anywhere fast. Officials have been saying inflation is transitory or temporary, but how long really is temporary? These supply chain backups, they're not going to start getting resolved well into 2022. That's when we'll see prices start coming down a bit as there's more of a flow of goods to meet demand. But until then, consumers are really stuck in this gamble. Can you afford to wait for the price to eventually drop, or do you buy now before it goes up even more in the short term?
A lot of folks are going to be paying attention to this in the coming months with the holidays coming. All these warnings: get your shopping done now, get your Christmas tree now, and so much more. Right, Shannon, Ben, thanks for breaking this down for us this morning. We appreciate it.
Yesterday's successful Blue Origin rocket launch made history as Star Trek icon William Shatner became the oldest person to ever visit space at 90 years old.
Here's what a clearly moved Shatner had to say about the experience right after landing.
What you have given me is the most profound experience I can imagine. I'm so filled with emotion about what just happened. It's extraordinary, extraordinary.
Joining us now is someone who also knows that feeling, Joan Higginbotham. She's an electrical engineer and retired NASA astronaut, and she spent 12 days on the International Space Station in 2006. Good morning, Joan. It's great to have you with us. We're lucky to have you to break this down with us. So Shatner was obviously very emotional there. What are your feelings hearing him describe the experience, and what was your own like?
Good morning to both of you, and thank you for having me. Yeah, it brought back a lot of memories. I didn't know if he was going to experience like what most astronauts do, because it was such a quick trip, but just seeing Earth from a different lens obviously moved him. And that's an experience I definitely had. I went up to space. I got to see Earth from a very different vantage point, and it really made me look at the Earth in a different way. She is very fragile. We need to be very mindful of how we treat her. And then it gave me a very different perspective on humanity, just trying to be, as I say, a gentler, kinder person to everybody on Earth.
Whatever it takes to maybe get people to feel that way.
Yeah.
We should try and get everyone out there into space so we have a gentler, kinder Earth. You spent 9 years with NASA starting in 1987. The space industry has changed so much so quickly. What are your thoughts about this new era of space travel that's upon us, and the private companies that are offering these kinds of experiences to those who can pay right now a pretty high price, but those who can pay?
Yeah, so I actually spent 20 years with NASA. So I started off as a rocket scientist launching rockets and shuttles and then getting to fly on one. And I've seen the industry change so much during that time. And it's really interesting that we have these new private space companies now that can offer taking people as well as equipment up for a little cheaper price. And what that allows NASA to do, it frees them up so that they can now concentrate on getting back to the moon and going to Mars. So you still have people that are in low Earth orbit, LEO, as we call it, where the space station is. Those are the private companies. And then you have NASA that's going to venture out further into space. So it's a great partnership, and I think it's going to work well.
And Jen, what do you think these high-profile launches with somebody like William Shatner on board does for inspiring young people to get into space exploration?
Well, I think it's great. I mean, who better a brand ambassador than Captain Kirk, who, for 10 or so years went to different planets on Star Trek, who really now is a spacefarer and got to go to the edge of Earth. So if that's not inspirational, I don't know what is. But I think that if everyone just got to see a launch, that in itself would be inspiring. There is no such thing as a bad launch. And once you see one, you will be hooked.
Look at even this video, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, what is your hope, especially in the wake of seeing William Shatner's experience, which seemed almost spiritual when he was talking at the end? What is your hope for this as it moves forward in the coming years?
That we will be able to actually get more people up there. I mean, to his point, if people could have that experience, it is, as cliche as it sounds, it is life-changing. And maybe it will make the world a better place, and that's what I'm hoping for.
All right.
Absolutely. And Joan, we love your astronaut Barbie right over your shoulder there. You are so cool, the real life one.
Thank you so much, Joan.
Thank you. Let's now get a check on your morning news now. Weather.
Bill Cairns is with us. Hey there, Bill. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. You guys, I was thinking, who's going to be next? Like celebrities or like, maybe presidents of countries? Yeah.
I don't know.
And we have to wonder who the first new, who's the next first news anchor is going to be to do it too. So maybe one of you two. Good luck, though. All right, so I'll watch. Here's what we're going to be dealing with in the middle of the country. Overnight, we've had some really heavy rain and flash flooding problems around San Antonio. This cluster of thunderstorms has just slowly been drifting, and those are always troublesome. Whenever you get these thunderstorm complexes that barely move, you can see it there located, was over San Antonio. Now it's drifting just north of Victoria, so that's by far the worst weather in the country right now. There's also some areas of rain up to the north of that. The flash flood watches, a lot of them have been dropped, but the ones obviously still around San Antonio still are up, but those will be ending. The heavy rain threat is ending, but we're still going to watch rainfall later today and tomorrow. It's all going to shift into the Midwest, and we could even deal with some severe storms out of this. Now, this isn't for today. This is for tomorrow. If you have Friday afternoon or evening plans right along the Ohio River all the way down the Mississippi, almost towards Memphis, just to the north of Nashville, about 9 million people are in a slight risk of severe weather, maybe a few tornadoes, but definitely strong wind gusts and some large hail. So this is how that mess is going to go. The Texas storm drifts northwards. Today's not too bad, just some isolated storms in the Ohio Valley. But tomorrow, this storm gets a little more juice to it, and that's tomorrow afternoon when we're going to see the best chance of severe weather. Driving on I-70 or anywhere through Kentucky could be kind of rough. So the forecast then eventually takes this storm all the way into the northeast. And as we go through Saturday afternoon, D.C., Philly, New York, all the way through the Hudson Valley, a line of thunderstorms will be sweeping through. So keep that in mind for your Saturday afternoon plans. So for today, still feels like summer, ridiculous. 80 degrees in Washington, D.C. today. Even Boston is going to be at 75. Boston should be in like the 50s and 60s this time of year. And on Friday, still unusually warm, guys, all the way up and down the eastern seaboard. D.C., mid-80s and near record highs.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.